dive right into the deep end. The Oso community is preparing to mark a somber anniversary on Friday.
On March 22nd, 2014, an unstable hillside collapsed, sending mud and debris in a rural neighborhood near the Stillaguamish River. 43 people lost their lives. Joining us to continue the conversation this morning is Lee Stoll. And Lee, for those who may not know about the Oso landslide 10 years ago, describe what happened on that really tragic day.
Well, first I want to tell you, we are at the memorial that stands just in front of where all of this happened. This is my first look at it. I just walked around. It is incredible. It really is a surprise of how much heart went into this, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I want to tell you first, the hillside that gave way above the Steelhead Drive area, that was on March 22nd, 2014. Just some information in the background. Unfortunately, 43 people were killed. More than 50 homes were destroyed. It was the largest landslide in terms of catastrophes and the casualties that were associated with it in U.S. history. I was here the day and was here basically for every day for about a month or so as the search continued for the victims at that point. That search went all the way into July. Those crews were incredible. We had hundreds of people out here. We had dogs, if we want to swing, just to show you a little bit of the memorial. There is something to honor them here because they did so much work trying to find survivors. We did stories that they were heartbroken because they didn't find anyone days after that search began. And then back off in the distance to show you just the length of this memorial, I walked over to these walls. The stained glass, you might be able to see those bright colors, the yellow, the blue, and the red. Each one of those represents someone who was killed in the landslide. There was an investigation, of course. There were lawsuits, and those who were survivors and the families of those who were lost, they settled with the state for millions of dollars and also with a timber company that was working in the area as well. And in that process, over those years, work began on this memorial. And for those who are involved, they said this is a timeline they wanted to stick to. They really wanted to have it ready to go for a public dedication for the 10-year anniversary happening on Friday. Again, just giving me chills. I haven't been back out here since I was here covering this, again, 10 years ago. But there is a sign saying exactly when it happened, 10:37 in the morning on March 22nd.
A powerful place to be, I'm sure, Lee, and for you, covering that incident so long ago. And they did a great job with the memorial, I have to say. You spoke with a woman who lost several relatives in that landslide, including her daughter. What did she share with you, and how is she keeping their memory alive?
The big part of this story that cannot be forgotten is the incredible grace that these survivors and the families, they showed to us as reporters trying to tell this story, again, for weeks, for months, and actually for the last couple of years. Nicole Wild Hart, she was one of the first people that I made a connection with when I got up here. Unfortunately, she was someone who lost so much that day. She lost her 19-year-old daughter, Delaney, Delaney's fiance, and also Nicole's parents. The thought is they were all at Nicole's parents' house planning a summer wedding at the property when that landslide hit, and unfortunately they all were killed. And Nicole's mother was one of the last whose body was recovered. That was almost in July. That's how long it took, and those searchers, again, not giving up until they found absolutely everybody. Nicole telling me we've kept in contact over the last 10 years, that the grief at one point almost took her life. It really took her to a dark spot. She admits that, but she found hope. She has a husband. She has 4 children. She held on to them, and she started something in honor of Delaney. She takes a lot of road trips. She lives half of the year in Alabama, half in Washington, and along the trips that she takes, she drops off pieces of artwork. She calls it random acts of artwork, and with them come little sayings, ways to just inspire people in Delaney's memory. She even takes Delaney's ashes with her, which she says, a bit with a laugh, that Delaney would hate because she hated to travel, but one way to keep connected to her daughter all these years later.
Lee, we know that, for every day that passes, the families of these victims is really hard. It is for the first responders, too. We know that Friday is going to be really hard just because it does mark 10 years. What do we expect to see during the dedication of that memorial on Friday?
Yeah, it really is going to be a lot for some people. This is a hollowed place now, and it's impossible to drive along 530 now without seeing this memorial. This is not just a simple plaque. This is something people have invested a lot of time and energy in. Every rock I see and pillar up here is marked with something saying community, hope, love, remembrance of the people we lost, the plantings that even haven't sprouted yet. I mean, this is going to be a beautiful spot once everything grows in as well, and it just goes on and on. So what we're expecting on Friday, the gate is going to open. It hasn't been opened off of 530 just yet. We had someone who let us in this morning just so we could show you a little bit of it. But on Friday, there is a public dedication. It's going to be in the morning. We are hearing survivors and the families of the victims. Many of them plan to spend that day together supporting one another. And among them, of course, there will be local officials, state officials, Governor Inslee also planning to be here.
Thank you, Lee, for showing us around and for sharing your personal experience as well 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm struck by, we talked a little bit earlier just about, the horrific loss that we saw that day with 43 people losing their lives, and the emotional impact that has had on the survivors who, in some respects, lost several members of their family, and some people were planning weddings or just planning the future. And there was days that were passed where first responders were looking for those survivors and hoping that they would find more. And the toll that took on many of those first responders in a pretty rural area of our region. And it's so hard to think that 10 years have passed, that so much time has passed, but for so many of those families, that pain is still very raw.
For sure.
And it'll be tough to walk through that memorial, I'm sure, and hope that they get, they feel the sense of love on Friday with, each of the markers that have been built for everybody that lost their lives up there, and just sort of hope that they feel the community's support and being wrapped around by that, because it's going to be hard. Friday's going to be really hard.